it and say, Reverend Wilcox needs me to pray for him. That's not what I'm saying. God delivered me. But what if those times when you pray for a loved one and the answer was no? What if the times you prayed for a close friend to accept Christ and the answer was no? What about a child you have who won't listen to sound advice and goes and does their reckless things? And the answer is no. I remember once, while my father was sick, so not overly long ago, I was studying my word a little bit more, and I was praying more, and I was learning more. And I'll be honest, I was doing it for self-service reasons. I felt that if I learned more about God and grew my relationship with him, he would hear my prayers and give me what I asked for. And I asked my dad one day why he named our church Sufficient Grace Church. Because I came across this scripture in Corinthians. And I said, God, why? I'm sorry, I apologize. Father, Dad, why? Pastor, why did you name our church Sufficient Grace? And I'll be honest with you, his answer has kept me grounded for the past 14 years. And he said, son, because even if God doesn't heal me, and even if he never answers another one of my single prayers, there's two things I know. He is still a God that answers prayer, and his grace is more than enough for me. It has stuck with me that my father, who was losing his mind, he was losing his strength, couldn't drive, thought my mom was his daughter, thought I was an intruder at one point in the house. The person I grew up with was not the person I lived with. But when I talked to him about the Bible, when I talked to him about the things of God, it's almost like the light switch went on. And my dad became my pastor again. My dad became my mentor again. So even I had to learn that even though I had to know God was not going to heal him the way I needed him to be healed, but I was going to take every opportunity, every moment I had to get what I needed out of the man of God before he went on. I had to take that. And it was a hard pill to swallow that my prayer wasn't going to be answered the way I wanted it answered. But this brings me back to the scripture. Paul, who wrote 2/3 of the New Testament. Paul, who was bitten by a venomous snake and commanded the poison to be purged. Paul, who sang praises to God in prison and the earth shook and broke his chains. Paul was struggling, and God would not remove that thorn. There are 2 points I want to make today. This is not going to be a long sermon. Point number 1, God knows us way too well. Paul first acknowledges to us that because God was using him in a unique and mighty way, God had to place some sort of check on Paul. To keep Paul from getting a big head, a thorn was placed. What was the thorn? We don't know. Some preachers have said it's about Paul's imprisonment. I've heard others say it was some form of physical ailment. I even heard one guy say one time it was because Paul was suffering from baldness. You laugh. I heard someone preach this up behind the altar one day. I have my own theory, but the fact is we don't know what it was. What we do know is that it was meant to ensure Paul didn't get conceited about how God was using him. See, God knew that Paul, with all his years of studying, all his knowledge, his former position of power, that if there wasn't something holding him to the ground, he would brag about people how important he was because of the revelations God had given him. Paul even writes that if anyone has the right to boast, it's me. So God had to keep that man in check. But the gifts of God are not to necessarily benefit us. They are for us to benefit the kingdom. And some folk might get upset with this fact, but in the global church, especially in America, we act like God is here to serve us. The gospel is about me. I know we love hearing messages about the favor of God. We read devotionals that make us feel good on the inside. I'm wonderful. Jesus exists for me. He's my genie. Whatever I ask of him, he's going to do. He was created to serve me. I wasn't created to serve him. That's the way a lot of people believe in their hearts. They may not say it with their lips, but in their hearts, that's what they believe, that if I asked him for this, he's going to give it to me. And many people believe God is here to serve us because of the toxicity in the messages that we've been listening to that have been infiltrated by secular doctrines. All the letters in the New Testament, all of them, many of them written by the same man who is struggling with this thorn, is to make us what? Grow up, to mature. The stuff written for husbands is to get you to mature. The stuff written to wives is to get you to mature. The things written to singles is to get you to mature. The stuff written to us leaders is to get us to mature. The stuff written for new believers is to get us to mature. The stuff written for children is to get you to mature. It's all for us to mature spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Because the end game of Christianity isn't money. It's not property. It's not position. It's not influence. It's so that when we are called home, when we are